Back. Welcome to Print Your Games, the podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gamers. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kirsten Sowers, also known as Seventh Mastery.
And instead of something new and awesome, we've brought you something old and awesome to talk about.
Hey, he's not that
Adam!
old.
Okay.
Twin Goddess, our first recurring guest. Hey,
Oh,
Adam,
nice.
welcome back on the show.
It's a pleasure to be back. It's fun to be here, and I didn't realize I was the first reoccurring guest. This is great.
Welcome
Yeah,
back.
we just had our 1 year anniversary a couple of weeks ago, so now I'm looking at like the successful guests and like, hey, and then you reached out to us, and I was like, perfect.
There we go. There we go.
The Print Your Games expanded universe, one step at a time. But for those of you who are not familiar, Adam, tell us about Twin Goddess Miniatures and why we love it, and bring it up on like every other show.
Twin Goddess Miniatures was my little experiment that's now pushing 3 years in. My background is in creating character art for films and games, and started making minis back in 2020. Right after lockdown started, but I have a big focus on creating like RPG minis. I like stuff for D&D, Pathfinder, just anything that involves like a hero character or a big villain character. I like to make kind of the main focal little things. Instead of doing big armies, I just want to make the heroes.
Yeah, one of the things that you do that makes your stuff stand out is we call what I like to call boutique boutique artists, where instead of focusing on bringing out 100 models and half of which are repos from each other, you make a growing core. Your packages have been growing. Like there's almost 20 or more than 20 in the new set. But they're like wonderfully unique, super dynamically posed, characterful, often with like concepts that just are not commonly done, and every single one of them would be the centerpiece of any sort of project that they were put in.
Yeah, that's high praise. Thank you. I like.
So,
go ahead.
for example, as some of your uncommon topics, you have college goblins this month.
Yeah, so it's not just goblins, but it's a whole college set. So this is actually going back to a theme I did sometime last year. It was kind of like a modern fantasy setting. I decided to branch it out to the school kids. So we have your jocks and stoner kids, your nerds, and one of my favorites there. One of the suggestions from my patrons actually was just like a succubus character who's always late for class. So you can see her there in her PJs with her coffee, just trying to make the morning classes just worn out. And then, of course, expanding the teachers as well.
So is Slime a teacher or a student?
That is a teacher. That's Professor Petrie. So the slime alchemy teacher. So and then I have a couple of reoccurring characters. I took one of the dragons from the Office set, turned him into a teacher, and actually the Brain drummer is also now a teacher. So Elder Brain, it just made sense.
Yeah, this is a wonderful set. Like this is the type of minis like I know I'll probably never get to use them in a game, but I'm going to enjoy painting the crap out of them, and there's nobody that looks at them that isn't going to ask about them.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, I actually might use one of them. One of our brand new games that just started, we have a mermaid in, and it's a land-bound game, and so we were kind of freaked out because she can only she can give herself legs magically for like an hour a day.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, she just kind of flops around, and I've been trying to contrive some way to help her out. And my character in that game can actually sing items into existence. And now I'm like, oh, I can sing her a wheelchair. And I was like, that is freaking perfect. And I hadn't even, I'm like, you have saved the day.
No, that was so the particular one, the mermaid in the wheelchair is actually the idea of the artist who helps me. So I have one more artist on the team, Autumn. She does one mini a month for me, just kind of helps out. And I let her kind of take free reign, and she drew the mermaid in the wheelchair. I was like, that is so obvious of like why hasn't anyone done this before? It's so it's like, okay, so it's my Professor X character, but so
Mhm.
it's Professor Siren, and once I saw like the idea of it, I was like, that's genius. That like having a teacher mermaid who in a wheelchair to get around is exactly the kind of round out thing I wanted to do. So in the previous set I did for this, I actually made a blind student who has she's a warlock with a seeing eye demon. So it's like this demon dog on this harness that's like dragging her around. It looks like this horrible monstrosity, but she's very cute and doesn't realize that it's a monster because she can't see it.
That's awesome. I don't know
We've
if I
got a-
have that set. I'll have to go back and look.
We have a question from the chat that I'm going to slightly censor. Who's the monster on the left?
I think they're talking about the elder brain there. So yeah, so just wanted to. I have an elder brain that actually his name's Brian. That was a typo that I had done for the Kickstarter, and it just kind of stuck. So instead of an elder brain, it was an elder Brian.
Elder
So,
Brian.
Yeah, so Professor Brian, the elder brain, is psychology teacher at the campus.
And for our audio listeners, it is this, I'm guessing, large-sized,
Yes.
gigantic brain wearing a college hat, being suspended by a bunch of noodly tentacles coming outside from a water well base, wearing a necktie. There's no neck, so the tie is mostly decorative. But let's be honest, on most of your miniatures, the tie is decorative.
It's true. It's usually hanging off to disrobe them or say that they're slightly disrobed.
Yes.
We have a lot of people in chat, by the way. James, David, Alex, C. Catlet. Yeah. So anyway, just hi all. I know we haven't had a chance to call it too many of you.
Yep. Yeah. So another great set. It's really cool. Has it been well received? Like, this is kind of par for the course for some of the stuff that we're used to getting from you, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's very month to month, I guess. I have themes that I cycle through, and you definitely see that people have their favorites. They'll resub when I do the modern fantasy, or I drop off when I do a month that's all goblins, and then come back when it's something else. But a lot of things is just, what do I feel like doing this month? So my polls are typically like, what are the next 4 things I'd want to do, and then you get to pick what happens first. I'm in that belief where it's like, if I put stuff that I don't want to do up there, it's just not gonna reflect the enthusiasm level that I'd want. And
Totally understand.
Right. And honestly, like a bunch of Shadowrun or Starfinder or Cyberpunk players would totally be could totally use a lot of these same minis in their games too. So just put some more magenta to teal gradients across those ties, and it'd be just ready. I mean, the Goblin Stoner on the skateboard would fit in an indie Cyberpunk game I was running. Now, you've, besides doing the month-to-month set, you just recently completed the need for anybody looking for any bard ever.
Yeah. That was a lot of work. Yeah, so Bardic Beatdown was my Kickstarter. It just finished up. I guess it was at the end of October. And then you can still get it at the Kickstarter price. If you look for the campaign page on my mini factory, you can get about 20 bards, 2 stages, and a bunch of props and background stuff, all for $25.
Yeah,
and if
super affordable. It's great.
And if you're just interested in the band, like the actual characters, you don't need the stage, you need that. It's only $15, and you can get 20 bards.
Right. Like,
so.
You've been sprinkling in for several of your releases, like these characters or versions of the characters that are doing the bard thing. I remember you did this Angel several sets back, probably one of your first minis, where like jumping off a rock with an axe in one hand, but then like there's an alt sculpt version of it where the axe is just her thrashing on a guitar.
Yes.
And so this was the most obvious choice ever to see this set come together as a campaign, and of course makes me giggle happily that it's available. But yeah, it's like gnome bards, orc bards, demon bards, goblin bards, anything you
Oh,
want. There's a bard
Mind
in full
Flayer.
plate.
There's
yes.
Mind Flayer Bard.
There are 2 Mind Flayer bards.
True.
So yeah, but the idea was back in the day. I love bards. I love rocket aesthetic stuff. So I would take a mini that I had already made, and I'd make a bard variant. And then what I started to realize I could do was, if I just put the bard variant to the side, I might be able to build up a big set over time. So I've actually been working on that set probably since like February, like just
Nice.
little work here and there. Of course, like a lot of it happened right at the last second because I like to procrastinate too. But the whole thing was like I wanted to make just over the top silly characters, a lot of like memorable poses and designs, and then of course make as many puns in there as I possibly could. So like the all elf band is called Aerosmith. That's AAROW. They have the Iron Maidens, Flayer, and the Audacious Deeds are my 2 gnome bards. So there's many little goofy things that I can reference. I tried to fit in there, and of course there's a lot that are on the cutting floor, didn't quite make it, but I definitely feel like there's another release in here for sure that I could easily tack on an expansion pack.
Right. And the awesome bards aside, which is fantastic on its own for this set, and like the current Kickstarter price is like 25 USD for everything, which is a stupid good price right now. If y'all just go get it, like it's a steal, go get it. You got the stages, which are epic, which would be awesome terrain pieces to use in like just about anything. Like those really awesome stages, especially since you've got like a more nobly kingdom one and like a more like spiky orc one. Either of those things could be the centerpieces of town squares and villages I build for games, even outside of this. And then you've got the merch store, which I just like cackled when I saw the merch store on the Kickstarter, the Frontiers. And then like the little crowd silhouettes in the background is perfect. And those crowd silhouettes are also super useful for games. If you just need to put a bunch of NPCs out into a field, just print like a dozen of those. They can't possibly take up much resin. Just paint it like a solid dark color, and then just sprinkle them around your battle mat when you need to say there's a whole bunch of NPCs here.
Yes, it's literally like a spell effect of just a crowd is the way I look at it. Because for like I made a little combat rules set that goes along with it that you optionally could use to make like a battle of the bands, and the crowd wall is essentially like a terrain. It's something difficult terrain that you have to move through. It can be on the field, and it actually attacks the players whether or not they did a good performance like the previous round and stuff like that.
Like if they did a good performance, does it pick them up and like crowd surf them against their will?
Not in the rules. That could be an optional house rule for sure. But the big thing is that it's a mosh pit, so you get down there and they're usually beating you up.
Oh yeah. Oddly, when I see it, like I mean, obviously I'm going to use these and I'm going to use them in games, but I also look at it and it's weird. It reminds me of Blood Bowl a little bit for doing your stands. And I was like, there's a lot of people who might pick it up just for flushing out their Blood Bowl arena, especially with that. Yeah, I like it a lot.
And like I was getting that same feeling because like for this latest month, I actually have an orc coach, which is part of the college thing, and I just thought like that's like the perfect Blood Bowl coach. You just got the big orc off to the side with his clipboard, barking commands.
Very cool.
We've got a comment in chat, unrelated to this, it looks like, from Dad's RC Workbench. Finally caught one of these podcast streams. Have heard you all rave over the Tenacious mix, but have you tried tough resins like Conjure or Resin TH72? I haven't tried neither of those. I have
but I'm curious now.
I've heard of Conjure. I haven't used it. I've never even heard of Resin TH72, but now I'm like Kristen, I'm curious. Have you used either of these, Dad's RC Workbench? And also, glad you caught the stream. What do you print in, Adam?
Yeah.
I actually also use the Tenacious resin mix. I do about 30% Tenacious.
Oh
And
wow, that's a lot.
yeah, it's and 30 to and then with I mix it with Anycubic Aqua Blue, so my
Okay.
renders actually look like my actual prints.
I can
Oh.
see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but what was interesting to me was that it kind of even though the Tenacious is kind of yellowish,
Hmm.
that kind of
Mhm.
color, when it fully cures, um, even with the blue in there, they come out like that nice like pale blue. They don't have any kind of yellowing or green to them. But I use the 30% because I'm clumsy and I drop stuff a lot, and I have lots of tiny little bits, the necks of guitars, little hands and fingers, and I've dropped so many off the edge of my table, and they've survived things that would have absolutely destroyed anything else.
Yeah, I use Elegoo Mint Green lately has been my favorite go-to. I need to
Okay,
try the Anycubic Blue because I love the look of your renders and want to
that's a
emulate that.
the green looks nice too.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm only using 10%, and like it's already like
Yeah, I use
good.
about 10 too, and unless like there was the unfortunate rulebook incident a couple weeks ago where one of my players
Yes.
Nothing's
dropped.
going to save you from the rule book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that did well. Actually, one of the Tenacious prints, she just kind of scooched out of the Warlock mini. She was fine, but the other two, and one of them was a big chonky guy, but he broke off at his ankles, which is probably the stress point where he was weakest. But
And I
Um,
see in the chat here, David had a question about the color. Did I make the render color match the resin? It was actually a happy accident. I'd got the Anycubic blue first, and then um, I was just messing around with renders and what looks good, and I had not even used the blue until after I had figured out that I liked that color. And then I was like, I got this blue stuff sitting in the closet. I might as well see how it looks. And it ended up being the exact same color. It was a
huh?
complete happenstance, just guess almost. Or maybe I saw the product pictures from Amazon, and in the back of my head, I was like getting to that color subconsciously. But I do like that it matches though, because when I take photos, now people get confused whether or not it's a render or the photo.
I mean, happy accident, good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
and I can say that the mix does need to be tuned for the resin you're using. Elegoo ABS like 10% seems to be the sweet spot for me, but like with the Soraya Tech Fast ABS like it's not enough. This stuff is so brittle that even my 10% here, like I could tell that if I just leaned a little bit hard on it, it would snap. And
Yeah,
so
my
I'm not happy
cheapy
there.
resin, there's no saving it with the Tenacious, as
Oh,
far as I can tell.
I still
Antonio,
can't believe you use that at all.
well, for terrain, who cares?
Sorry.
Antonio Castillo says mixing resins will change exposure times. It does
Yes.
if you put too much in it, but like at 10%, I usually don't have to do too much exposure time.
I think I knocked mine up 0.25 seconds for my 10% mix compared to without. This is after doing a bunch of exposure tests and such. So, like, it's a very slight increase with Tenacious, like, just a very slight increase, not much.
Maybe I should give it a go.
Yeah. I only print with that, so I can't say like that's my setting. Is my settings. I have a digital scale, and I weigh out all my stuff in grams, and I mix it exact every time, so I never
Oh,
have to
wow.
Of course you
mess
do.
with
You're
that.
so precise. It's that teacher in you, isn't it?
It's what it is. Yeah.
I just got my little cup. I fill the cup up, pour it into the fresh bottle of resin, and give it a shake.
Honestly, I open it up
hyper-precise.
and I fill it up to the top with what they didn't put in there, and it's about 10% from what I've been able to figure out.
Oh, that's got to be more than 10, though.
It's
Oh, my
not.
gosh.
At least
Oh,
not in
wow.
my
Chip
cheap
bag.
bottles.
Okay, fair. Dad's Works has an answer for us. From Dad's RC Workbench. Really like Conjure Tough, and Resin TH72 is even better. Tough resin is great for tabletop prints for flex and durability. I need to get a bottle of this stuff and test it out because, like, I
Guys,
haven't.
let's say.
Yeah, the price is going to be like a concern for me too because Tenacious is $60 per kilo, and like the ABS like has gone down to about $30 per kilo lately, and I'm loving that print. But that might just be Black Friday pricing.
I've been joking that everybody should just buy me resin for Christmas or whatever. But at this point, that'd be a great buy me experimental resin. I'll try it out. We'll see.
I do have a set that I got at the dollar discount bin of resin that I need to test out to see if it's any good.
You got resin at what?
There's this like discount bin, like aftermarket sales, like everything in the store is $2 today. What you dig through bins and buy whatever you want.
Oh yeah,
and I found a kilogram. I forget the brand. It's a name brand. It's like decent brand. I just forget what it is offhand. I'm like, mystery resin needs to be tested.
Yeah.
The Rhizone was $33. Huh.
Ooh, that's cheap enough to just give it a go.
Yeah, maybe.
You like riding cheaper than that, don't you, Kristen? How much is the cheap stuff that you've been using on your terrain?
$18.
Holy crap! Are you sure it's not just pine sol in a bottle?
It works. I have a whole bunch of cave printout walls to prove it.
Just don't breathe on them too hard.
Yeah, right. Well, my biggest problem was the fact that I didn't put those drain holes in the first set, so they still kind of creep me out a little bit. Smelly and like, is there something coming out of that one?
Yeah, gassing off, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the other things I was like, if anyone wants to get me a handheld cure light that I can get like and shine in, I might need to get one of those.
Alex is asking, back to Bard chat, as Bards are my player's least favorite PC class, is the best way to kill a Bard with obscurity?
Well, that's sad.
I mean, if we're going, like slightly off color, I would say STDs, but
or just if you happen to fail the con save against the dragon. Yeah.
Yes, right. Exactly. I'm getting disapproval from Param.
The correct answer is the best way to kill a Bard is off screen.
There you go.
That's pretty good.
All right. So what have we been printing lately? Adam, you mentioned that you've been printing. What's been coming out of your printer lately?
Well, most of the stuff I'm doing right now is just for my current session. So lots of different characters. Right now, I kind of see it as like placeholders and to make sure that they don't die, because it's like really early in the campaign. So I've already killed off one of my player characters.
Oh no!
By accident, I would say. They didn't say that they were hurt, so no one healed them. But
in my experience, printing a mini is the death sentence at the beginning of the game, because I've been starting. I'm getting past that with 3D printing, but like. Back in the day when I was like going out and buying like some Warhammer mini for $1 gazillion, that guy was dead in a week.
Yes, no, for sure. So that's really what I've been doing is printing more PCs as they cycle through them.
So what is the terrible thing that's killing all these PCs? What is the bad guy?
Well, I'm running Tyranny of Dragons. And the blue dragon at the beginning of that, if you know, is not really supposed to be a major threat. You kind of hit him a couple times and he flies off. But after a successful Earthbind on him, he wasn't able to leave. So he kind of took it out on the party and crushed them with some wagons. So
so they asked for it.
Pretty much. It's just kind of that whole let's try to do something really clever and outside the box, and ended up smashing their fingers in the process.
What is it about player characters in RPG campaigns that they will go out of their way to prevent an enemy from running away?
Yeah.
Seriously. Like, yeah, we had a blue dragon try to shake us down once, and of course, like I thought, oh, this must be a combat. So I Eldritch blasted it in the face. And
now
proceeded to get our whole party spanked for it.
Yeah.
And just earlier that week, you bought a new mini for that character.
Yeah.
Right.
So at least now it's quick to print. But now that they've made it, we're like 5 sessions in now, I feel safe enough to actually sculpt the current surviving characters, and that'll be the next thing I print out. It's so for January, I'm doing it's an extension of my Oaken Hollows Heroes line, which is really just NPC and PC sculpts of stuff from my campaigns. So the next set will be my current party and a couple of NPCs from that campaign.
So a lot of your sets are more anachronistic sometimes. Is this going to be a little bit more in the solid fantasy realm, or would you say these characters are still a little anachronistic or more modern vibe?
This next set is very much your high fantasy setting type thing. But that's because we're actually playing in the past of my setting. So the setting I normally do imagine if you took, Middle Earth, but it was the 1980s. So everyone has sending stones in their living room so they can call their friends, but their mom's always on it, so they have to ask for permission. Mm-hmm. But so technology is up to like the 80s American technology, but it's all powered by magic. So that's where like you see like the college set.
The college set, yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, and the Bard set is all really kind of in that particular time range.
Gotcha. So you're going back and playing the past of it, though. That's fun.
Yeah, and through their actions, they'll end up kind of inadvertently causing something that happened in the present campaign. It'll be a big reveal when they do it.
I love stuff like that, like where you have the two interrelated campaigns. I have 3 that are currently kind of dancing around each other and like, ending up in the same places where one of them just was and seeing the wreckage of whatever the other party did.
Yeah. No, I love callbacks and references. So it always ends up in that. It ends up in a lot of my minis because of that as well.
We have a question from Dad's RC Workbench. My garage is running around 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I have no idea what that means Celsius to all of our other listeners. Midday, and that barely works for printing. Any tips on vat warming? Okay, so this is actually something I'm researching for an episode right now. And you have 4 main techniques you can use to warm your vat. You want to kind of get the printer at least to 70 Fahrenheit. And again, somebody please do in chat, please do the Celsius math there for us. So you have 4 main methods to do this. And each of them has their advantages. You can get a small space heater to be next to the printer, and these can get very efficient and small. You do not need much if you've got just a small temperature differential. Like my little mud room gets a little colder than the rest of my house, so I just have this very tiny space heater over there that like is meant to like cool your legs in an office. It's not even meant to heat up a whole office, and it does enough. We have confirmation that 70 Fahrenheit is 21 Celsius. So thank you both Adam and David for the quick math there.
And we're talking to David. Yes, somebody does get to play in more than one of them. Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. This is the most least efficient option. The other option is that you can get an enclosure for your printer and then heat the enclosure with a small personal heaters. They make these very, very tiny, like little USB heaters that you can throw in these things. And you're talking very small amount of airspace. So that is nothing to heat.
And if you have a vent issue, it's already a good chance you're kind of building an enclosure like that anyway. So
yeah. So these enclosures are meant to control heat, and usually have little vent holes that you can hook up to ducting. So like I have my airbrush booth here. I've constantly thought about if I brought the printers in here, just do a Y split and then printer and airbrush booth, same hole. You can also, people have done various mods and little 3D prints to take those very tiny, like they're basically the size of a portable battery, and just put them inside the enclosure of the printer itself. And that works crazy good. Like they can get the inside of that vat, like over 120 Fahrenheit, like fairly quickly. So be careful with that.
Don't melt your printer.
Yeah. And then finally, there's these little wraps that go around the vat itself. So instead of trying to heat the whole space or the air around it, it just literally warms the vat of resin up directly. And I think those probably have the most, those have the the chance to be the most messy, but the most efficient of all the options. And I do not know which one I'm going to choose or go with. I've been meaning to do a deep dive research on this for an episode, but there's your answer. And sorry for the tangent, y'all.
That's all good. Actually, I have an enclosure for mine. I went to Lowe's and just got one of those like plastic, like tool cabinets. Basically, it's about
Okay.
5 feet tall, maybe 2 feet deep, and I have the printer in there on a shelf. And I actually have cut a hole in the side with a duct that goes outside the house. But I do that. I just take a little personal space heater, and I actually point it at the side of the container, so it like kind of just convection heats the whole thing without it being directly blowing inside. And that works pretty good. I can keep it at about a nice 85 in there.
Gosh, we're gonna have to keep you online for like technical support. You know, like all these really well thought out answers.
So you have a unique opportunity with leveraging 3D printing for your games because you are also a 3D artist. Like, how much of the stuff do you print to your games is coming from other artists, and how much of it is just like, I need a goblin, I make a goblin?
I could say it's a good 50-50, because as much as like I like sculpting stuff for my campaign, sometimes I see a really cool mini. I see something on my mini factory, and that's when like, oh, I need to make a character now that looks like this guy. So, but I definitely do edit things sometimes. I'm like, oh, he's almost perfect, but that's not the right sword. Let me sculpt the sword real quick and put that in his hand, because it's this exact one. I need this one. But it definitely can get me distracted from doing stuff that I need to be doing. So it's like, oh, when my release is in a couple weeks, I got time to like fart around and kit bash a couple models. Yeah.
So you mentioned things you should be doing. The last time we chatted with you, you were like juggling a college job, and like we had our little giggles as, of course, everybody in the game industry either works for a college or IT. But there's been a change.
Yes, that's no longer the case. So as of November, I am now modeling full time. So
Yes.
this
Awesome.
is my full-time gig. So that means more minis, pretty much. I'm going to be keeping the monthly release about the same size, but with the extra time, I'm going to be doing more side things, more Kickstarters of like themed releases, and just kind of relaxing, because I after doing a whole year, a whole 2 years of teaching during the day and sculpting at night and not getting to spend time with my family, it's nice just to be able to like set the same time during the day that I would be working just to work on minis, and then the rest of the day I'm actually off. I get to just relax now, which has been fantastic. And I'm at a good enough spot where like just doing the one thing isn't going to hurt me financially. So like I got enough patrons and enough people buying stuff now where I can leave the teaching job and it's not going to affect anything outside.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I am super glad to hear it. Congratulations. We definitely love Twin Goddess here on the podcast, and y'all do great stuff. And by y'all, I guess I mean you. No, you work with a small team now.
Yeah, I have Autumn. So like I say, I have my one extra a month artist.
Yeah,
she's usually busy
go Autumn.
Yeah, she actually does minis for a couple different artists now, but she actually was a student of mine way back in the day, and she's a game artist, so she works on different game companies doing stuff. So she would just make one mini a month because she had time to. So it's just nice to have a little extra input there.
Nice.
That's really cool.
So is it scary now that like you're doing this all on your lonesome, and this is what's going to pay the bills and put food directly in your belly?
It was like a little bit at first, but like I said, I feel like I've gotten a good steady, like I don't have a lot of drop off at the end of the month anymore when it comes to like subscribers, and my wife works. So she's a programmer. She makes the big bucks. So I just like, hey, can I be on your health insurance too? Like, oh, I can. Awesome. I can totally do this now.
That's great.
Kristen, you've got the experience being like a full-time developer too, right?
Oh yeah. Most years, but sometimes there has to be some scrambling. So yes, I understand the fear for sure, and yeah, especially like with not being able to do conventions for a couple of years, it's been a
Mhm.
little yeah. So I wish you all the luck with that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I feasted famine as it is.
Yes,
Um,
no, and I've done the starving artist thing before teaching too, so I'm
Mhm.
not totally, it's not
Mhm.
a complete abstract thing to think that maybe I should make a sandwich instead of going out to eat tonight. But
mhm.
but I'm not really not in that spot right now, luckily. So I'm
I'm
doing
also
good.
in the married to an IT
There
genius
you go.
club,
There you
so
go.
there's that.
and I
But
am and I am horribly single.
working 15 jobs for a gazillion cool people. I
So.
if tribe, I guess I'm not a patron, I'm a triber for
Mhm.
you, Adam. But if you need any muses, I have one thing I know you could do that would make me
Mm,
so excited.
okay. Good. Feel free to drop it. What is it?
Well, Esteban is one of my favorite minis ever, right? It's his name, right?
Okay. Yes. No.
I know he's your character.
Yes. He is the wizard, illusion wizard extraordinaire.
You have some of the coolest flight bases for him that I
Okay.
have
Yeah.
ever seen. And flight base STLs are boring out there.
Okay.
And I don't even if it was just a tiny add-on,
Just
I
a couple of
would.
different spell effect kind of lifted bases.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the sort of stuff your dynamic skills are so good at, but like it is a need out
That's
there.
that's his
Yeah.
that's his surfer one. Yeah.
Yeah, he also has one where he's just hovering in this cloud of mist that's just so cool. It's like one of my favorite
Yeah.
things ever. I've tried to adapt it to other minis, but my very poor modeling skills show themselves very quickly.
I think I like doing this because it allows me to kick them at a 45-degree without having to worry about one contact point when you go to glue it down.
Mhm.
But it's how reusable is it? So I would love to see what you could do with it. So I'll give it a go. I haven't done a little base release in a minute, so I can throw those out so fast.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And the cool thing is with it, because it's mist, you can
Mhm.
collide it with all sorts of minis. And that was with, that very specifically, perfectly modeled mini being the
Mhm.
thing. If you actually tried to make it more, you know, generic, I bet it would be freaking amazing. So
Yeah. You take full advantage of the unique capabilities of 3D printing when you're doing your sculpting, because this piece, if we wanted this model to exist in real world in hard plastic, it would be like 3 sprues, and Games Workshop would sell it for $70.
Yeah, I feel like I got in just at the right time because I was just figuring out how to make like fully solid modeling stuff. Because I was working on this video game actually, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. That would be 5, 6 years ago at this point. And I wanted just to have like a cool figure on the table. And so I had like kind of just got into it, and I was sending it off to Shapeways to get it
mhm.
printed. And then now once I saw like the 3D printer personal ones coming out, I was like, okay, so I'm gonna get in on this and figure out how far I can push something before it just won't print anymore.
Mhm.
Just it needs to be as dynamic as possible, but still functional in one piece. Sometimes I have to split up the model because I get a little too
Mhm.
ambitious, but I try to avoid that.
Yeah, I've been surprised how many of them are just good to go. Like that Esteban one, I've printed like 5 of them at least, and like just it's gorgeous. I know technically it's 2 pieces, but you don't have to print it in 2 pieces. I've
Mhm.
merged it, and yeah, so good. It's probably top 3 for me, man. I'm serious. Like
I,
my
Yeah.
favorite
I,
models.
I like to hear that. It's like that character is very near and dear to my heart, and I think it came across with the sculpt. Like I had to make
Yeah.
it perfect. So, and then like the one I'm working on right now, I don't know if you guys necessarily follow me on Twitter, but
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So it's a gnome Oathbreaker paladin, and she's actually based off of a character that I play in World of Warcraft, because I do play that. But basically my own little lich queen, as it were.
Ha! I did not follow you, but I just did, and I pulled it up now. It's looking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little Grave Knight like action.
Let me pull her up. Let me pull her up on stream so people can see her.
Oh, she's got lots of
this
parts
one,
too.
yeah. So this one,
Yeah.
like, I went a little all out on this. Again, whenever it's a character that I play, I find I spend maybe 5 times as much time.
Yeah, just
I would
the
too.
level of detail on the for our listeners, it is a gnome death knight. Where like that would be my description of the character based on the number of skulls on the armor. Like dragon skulls and just normal skulls and then more dragon skulls, and like every single little scale is detailed, and there's scratches in the armor, and there's little fur tufts where the banding meets the armor. Like it looks like it jumps straight out of World of Warcraft, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
It is based off one of the tier sets, so like it's I can't take full responsibility for design of it, but it's like I said, when it's a character that I love the character, I love the story behind them, I just love the attitude of the character, I'll end up spending 5-10 more hours per of work on that one mini just to make it, that much better. And then I burn myself out on making armor pieces, and I go back to just doing leather armor and cloth.
But
so
that is
sleep, do you get it?
Sleep. Well,
Yeah,
now.
I do now, but this one was funny because I was working on that today, and I just forgot to eat all day. I was just like hyper focused on the monitor.
Mm-hmm.
It hit like 5 p.m. and I was like, I didn't eat today. I just worked through it.
That is the sort of thing, though, that like in the past, this is why I love 3D printing. In the past, someone would have made that character, have their gnome Oathbreaker or whatever it is. I could see a fighter warlock multi-class or something in there too. Mm-hmm. But like there would have never been a mini. They would have just kind of painted up some like rogue or fighter that was kind of half baked, and now there's this freaking perfect mini that dozens of people are going to be like, oh my gosh, that is my character, or like so close, like and here you've brought it out of the ether. I love it.
I guess it does change. Like the economics of scale here are different as a 3D modeler. Like these designs would not be profitable at the scale that a GW has to sell them. Like it's when we were talking to like WizKids, when I talked to WizKids, I interviewed them about like the randomized mini boxes, and it was that the reason they went with randomized mini boxes was because there were some characters and some monsters and stuff they wanted to put into the world, but could not justify making them as something that people chose to buy, because nobody's going, like, it's just not profitable to put the molds together. So by randomizing the boxes, it let them make the minor characters, the gnome warriors, the barbarian bards and things like that just would not sell otherwise. But that's not something that applies to 3D printing, because if you can just find a couple of hundred customers, suddenly it's worth it? Question mark?
Yeah, no, I think like depending on the model, this one definitely is not the normal time case, but like something like any one of the bards, let's say from the Bardic Beatdown set, that's somewhere between like 4 to 6 hours per mini. So they don't take a long time to make if you're kind of staying away from like overly intricate details and really armor. If you have armor on something, it immediately increases the amount of time it's going to take to make it, just because of making it look clean and not clunky and awkward or like too blobbish. Can just take time. But when you think about like how many hours it takes to make something, and I only really need to sell it, it's like if it's like $4 a piece, if I sell it 100 of those, I've easily made back how much time I spent into it, and I'm going to get most of that to some people like from the patron. Patreon and the tribes and stuff like that. So it's a really neat place to be as an artist, just because I feel that originally, Patreon and tribes was made. Well, I'll say Patreon was usually made as like you're a patron. You're paying someone to make something, not necessarily to get something. It's like I want to support this musician because I like their music and I want them to make more. And I feel that that spirit definitely lives right now in like the small artist community in Patreon, where it's like I'm not really backing this artist that I like necessarily because I want that many, but I want to see what they can make because I like what they do. They have creative stuff. I might use one or two of the set that they did, but just knowing that like my support allowed them to do that and not have to like go do some job they hate is just like really, really cool. And it's I like to support as many of my other artists as possible, as well as just like by promoting them or even like buying their stuff. But it's just neat to be kind of back to that old way of like, in the Renaissance era, you'd pay artists just to go make paintings. Like, didn't commission what it was, but they would pay him a bunch of money. Go make some stuff. It's going to be cool, right? And that's where we're at again.
Yeah, but in the Renaissance era, you also kind of nudge. Can you please make this one look like my rival, but make sure that they have embarrassing details?
I mean, there's a commission tier for a reason. So if people want me to do that, I can do that.
And relatedly, David in chat has a question. Is there a point where you decide it isn't financially worth your time to keep working on a model? Do you sit down with an idea and time frame to finish it?
So I usually don't let it get to that point where it would become a loss. So when I go to make something, I immediately am considering, is this something that other people would want? Or is this something just for me? Because sometimes I do that. I will make a mini that's just for me. It's something that I wanted. And if somebody else wants it, that's great. But then I'm not actually going to be able to make a living off of that. So when I start off, when I'm at the end cycle of each month and I'm like ready to post up the stuff and begin working on the next month, my first thought is like, what's something that's kind of trendy right now? What do I see a lot of people talking about? What is like, okay, what's going on Critical Role? Did they just meet a new cool NPC? Did they just do this? And then try to make something that's in the same vein of that. So like, for instance, the Spelljammer release was coming out. I made a Spelljammer set a month before that.
You made the best Spelljammer set.
It's one of my favorites for sure. Yeah, like that oozling. Oh, love her.
And it's just kind of following trends. And a lot of times it's this, what is it called? Oh, it's like the phantom behind, where like it seems like all the artists for some reason, like everyone's doing nulls this month, but why? Everyone's doing this, but why? And then you kind of see that a lot of it's trending on stuff on like Reddit. Everyone's talking about a certain goofy broken combo, or just a meme going around about some kind of character, like the Orb Wizard, for instance. And that was a big thing. I jumped on that. Like I was like, okay, yeah, that's fun. But that's kind of like where I have to go before I even begin working on it. If I'm working on a model and I decide it's not worth my time at that point, I've made a mistake.
Yeah.
But you definitely do operate in a different space than a lot of other creators. Like I said, you do the boutique stuff. Your stuff is like artistically unique, and in a lot of ways the artistry is the point of a lot of your models. Like the bard that's the 6-armed demon suspended up in chains is a massively awesome model that I bet doesn't get a whole lot of game time on a lot of tables, even if it is massively popular.
I'm just going to point out I played a 6-armed bard just recently.
Was it? Kristen, I am no longer going to be surprised by the weirdness that your games get up to. They are not bound by reality or Euclidean math.
I was very appreciative of it, although that game was online, unfortunately, so I didn't get to have a mini for it.
Well, I mean, they have that new thing that they're putting together for D&D Beyond, so maybe one day.
Yeah, it's some interesting stuff. I'm curious. Do you? Well, I noticed you had a lack of a Dragonlance fan service set.
Yeah.
Is that like a don't like, or just didn't want, or how that happened?
Okay, so to me, I kind of so Dragonlance, cool setting, but because it's like army faction warfare, never really got into it. So to me, it was just like I would just end up making what would just look like normal adventurers. I actually don't know a whole lot about the setting either. It's just never really caught my attention, I guess. So when I saw it was coming out, I was like, man, I probably should make something, huh? Oh well, I'm that's not going to. And then and then it seemed like it kind of came and went. I don't know, to me at least. Like now they're pushing like free stuff for Dragonlance on D&D Beyond. Like, oh, go here's your advent calendar. Here's
It's
free
weird
stuff.
just to think because of the bundled pre-order people getting their book early. I think all the content creation already happened for most people. And actually the physical books, people are just barely starting to see those. And so it's interesting that, yeah, like you said, I think it feels like it's almost already happened for sure. No, please, Alex, no. Alex just said he needs Param and Kristen Kender.
No.
Kender are the most traumatic thing in my gaming experience as far as I'm concerned. Please, God, no.
I do like the Skelly Boy xylophone player, though.
That is cute.
Yeah, so Gary is a reoccurring character in my stuff, so he always has to show up.
So it's been a really interesting year for 3D printing. We're not really post pandemic, but we're acting like we are. And so, the world is happening, cons are happening. We're starting to get to use these awesome models we've been spending, months and years hoarding inside of our little like nerd goblin holes. And we're ready to unleash them onto the player base at large. And we've seen big players starting to move in this space. What do you think about those last year of 3D printing, and what do you think the major things that people need to be paying attention to?
I think personally the next big thing is going to be the 3D color printing. Throughout this year, there's been this within like my personal like 3D sculpting community, and also just like talking to some of like the big wig people over at my mini factory. Everyone's kind of trying to get to this color thing, and so I can see that is definitely where things are going to go in the future. So I've actually been secretly trying to teach myself how to get these things ready for 3D color printing, and maybe start to build up a backlog of that, so that when that does become more normal, I can just release a big whole thing. Here's a bunch of my old minis and they're colored now.
Yeah, we saw a bit of a false start on my mini factory with that, where they were like, hey, we're ready to do 3D printed color stuff. And then I'll be honest, they looked like garbage. And then it was like they almost immediately stopped promoting it. I don't know where they're at now. I know they did a round 2 where they looked slightly better. Yep. And I know Hero Forge did 2 rounds of it where, they released it and everything looked like it was muted and covered in dust and Cheetos. And then they did round 2 where they got it dialed in a little bit better. And I know that because they worked with us to do pre-promotion for that when they were launching it. So like disclaimer, sponsored, things happened with me and Hero Forge when that was going on. And so I got to see like how they really improved it, and they seem to have it right. So I'm surprised that that's been over a year now and we're still not seeing a lot of movement in that space.
The thing that excites me the most about it is not necessarily that you can pre-paint it, because I know people like to paint the minis, but that you can print different opacities. Ooh. So people are doing it now where like I could have the spell effect transparent, but the model is solid color, and then I can paint on top of that. So that whole thing is got me pretty excited. But as far as like the full year, I think that it's been very interesting, at least from my perspective as a small creator. I saw a lot of friends kind of give up this year. And I know you guys had a show about that. And I think that getting into it now as a small artist is very, very difficult, starting off fresh. I think I made that line before it was like oversaturated. And now with the mega bundles and the larger groups of artists now working together, you got like 20 to 40 artists working as like one big group making stuff. It has become challenging. And I think, and I've just been fortunate, and I didn't do this on purpose. I just got lucky, but now like seeing it in hindsight is you have to have something different to kind of make it. Like Cobra mode's still around, that's because they do their thing, and it's their thing the best, so it's I got lucky, like you said, because I do like the terminology you use with the boutique style, but yeah, it's like I do something that's just different, and I think that's why I've been able to stay afloat. Because if I was doing, a set of dwarves every month, a set of goblins, like in that traditional style, I don't think I would still be doing it either.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's room if you've got a unique artistic style that is high quality. And there is room if you can do top level quality. I mean, like the best of the best, there's still room for you. There is no room left for mediocre Games Workshop copies. Because there are hundreds of groups doing that right now.
Yeah, and like you can kit bash stuff now, like that's better quality than some of the stuff that people are putting out. But yeah, no, then it's just a lot of burnout too. A lot of people kept trying to go numbers versus quality, so they would try to up 2 more a month, 2 more a month, 2 more a month, and then they got to the point where it was unsustainable, and they had to stop doing it.
Right. Like the only groups that are like if you look at Titan Forge, it's like they got 40 people, and you look at like other groups that are doing the big mega bundles, it's like 30, 40 people now putting those out. As a lone artist, you're not going to be able to match those numbers.
No, and then I'm not even doing reposes, so I'm definitely not going to hit those numbers.
Well, you're already making faster sculpts than just about anybody I've heard of, saying you can do a character in 2 to 4 hours. And most of the people we interview, they say it takes about 10 to 12 hours to do a character.
Now this is I've been sculpting for 10 years, and I have a library of pieces and parts. So I'm not even like really much of a sculptor per se anymore, as much as I am just a really good kit basher of my own work. So I'll steal from myself, my past self. But that's why I'm able to crank them out so quick. Like this one, like I said, the Death Knight Gnome, this is pushing closer to 16 hours right now. Just because all of it had to be new. Like I didn't have a Dragon Skull shoulder pad to pull from.
And plus there's now.
I do now.
It's really obvious that a lot of passion is going into this particular mini, and I, as like an F tier artist myself, like when that passion grabs you, you just go. You don't care the time you're dumping into it. You're just going to keep going until the muse lets you go.
Oh, for sure.
We've got a question calling back earlier from James, asking. This is, I think, in reference to the collar printers. Like, will the slices themselves have to support color separation at that point? As I know how these as I understand how these current generation of these printers work, they have what looks like an inkjet system with multiple different colors of resin in there, and it like basically it prints a version of the layer with the different color resins as one thin layer of resin that it then cures and merges with the model. So instead of like the big vat filled with goo, it's literally just putting one layer of goo on the film and then smashing it and then putting a fresh layer of goo one at a time.
It's like a deposition model, and it basically like powder coats it with resin and then actually hits it with the UV light as it goes. So it's like a laser jet printer. But what's really cool about these is that the support system is completely different. Instead, the supports, instead of being like prongs, it's really just a mass. It's a glob that it sits in, but the glob is with a different resin that is water soluble. So they just drop it in a vat of water, it dissolves off. Ooh. So there's no marring. Like you don't have to worry about warping or distortion. So I mean, even if it just becomes that kind of printer in the future, I think that's going to be a huge step up.
I mean, there have been some people talking about just the 2 nozzle printers to do that, where it's just normal resin, not worrying about color differences,
Yeah.
and then just support mass, and like
Yeah.
that. Absolutely, I'm on board for drop in hot water, pull finished mini out.
Yes, no, for sure. And then as James was asking about the colors, so there's actually someone trying to work out a way for you to be able to color it yourself, but a lot of times the artist will basically paint it for you. It's a texture map that gets applied to the surface, which is then printed. But what we can do is we set up what are called ID maps, which can determine material and this like area, and essentially it would be grayscale, and you can just color tint it based off these ID maps. So you'd be able to go onto like this website, I guess, and like, okay, click on the part that's his coat and pick a color. Click on the part that's his armor and pick a color.
Yeah.
And then it would be able to print it like that.
Yeah, that's how Hero Forge's system works, James. If you go to Hero Forge's website, you can, if you like put a mini together, you can go down and color it and like actually like paint on the mini, and that's what they're doing. The as I understand it, they have to color it in some sort of special software and then slice it, but because the slice is what tells the printer which nozzle to print from. So like. There has to be like an in-between layer before it gets sliced to do those color mapping.
And I can't even imagine how it works when you're dealing with transparency as well, because the way that data is currently stored, as far as I know it, it's on the surface detail. So I don't know if it's projected toward the core based off of like what the surface is. I have no idea.
As I understand it, it's based off the shells.
Okay, so it's surface to core kind of. Okay.
Yep. And as far as transparency, I have no idea. I do know that they are limited. There's a number limit on what they can handle with pure colors, because it is like an inkjet printer where you load it up with like 8 or so different. I dove down this rabbit hole and was like, well, how much does it cost me to buy one of these things?
Yeah.
The answer is you can get one for like $16,000 now, which is down from $40,000 a year ago, which is down from $200,000 a year before that. So this trajectory, eventually Param's going to be full color printing.
I think it's cool. It's just like crazy. It's like watching like the space race of our day. You know, it's just how fast this stuff is coming out. Because you think about like actual printer technology. You had those big cartridge printers with the punch holes on the side, you know, when you were in elementary school, and now all of a sudden, you know, I can print a billboard if I wanted to in the ultra HK 8K resolution. So I mean, that's where we're at right now. We're at the grandma's laser printer from the 90s stage of 3D printing is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And where we're also at is the end of our episode.
Oh.
So before we take off, is there anything you want us to shout out to, Adam?
I guess the one shout out I have is, if you guys want to get the Bardic Beatdown set, now is your last chance to get it at the Kickstarter price. At the end of December, the campaign page will be going down, and the only way to get the models will be direct purchase or bundle through my mini factory, which are going to be much more expensive. So if you want to try to get those bards, now is the time to get them.
Yeah, it's only $25 USD right now, gang. Go get it. It's like so worth it. So stupidly worth it.
Yeah. Insane value.
Oh, Alex, you're wrong. I do like painting too much, but I will totally leverage both at the same time. I will focus on painting like, I don't know, 12 minis a day, while at the same time the printer prints 40. I will have entire legions at my command. I don't want to paint the boring stuff. I want to paint the fun stuff.
There you go.
It does wear you out when you're on zombie number 173.
I never need that many, because that would kill any party pretty much. Or
It's
be
for the necromancer.
Trivial to other parties. So
Well, like if you do the swarm model, like does 5e have the medium-sized swarms like Pathfinder has, where you can have the zombie swarm where you literally put 16 zombies on the table, but they use one stat block?
there are rules for it. I actually don't know if there are official rules for it. I've definitely seen tons of third-party rules for that.
Oh yes, David, perfect. Printer does the base coats. Yes,
There
the
you go.
boring part. Then you paint over top of it. I love it. It's like
Oh,
Slap Chop 3.0.
you could print it in a black and white gradient, and then just do washes on top, and then you could have whatever color you want.
Nice.
Yes.
Built-in zenithal.
Exactly.
Anything you want to shout out to, Kristen?
Nope. I'm good to go.
I want to make sure everybody knows about Twin Goddesses Patreon. Go check that out. Every single month is a fantastic collection of some of the best models you will see, and often the models that I use myself to show other people why 3D printing is awesome. If you want to do that, you can go find them on Patreon and My Mini Factory. Again, the Bardic Beatdown campaign, do not miss it out. You've only got till the end of the month to still get it at that $25 price. And just show some love to a small creator going full time, trying not to starve to death. Adam, it was great having you on the show. We hope to have you on again.
I'd love to.
We'll see you all. If you want to find more of our stuff, you can do so over at printyourgames.com, where you'll find all of our episodes, including the last one Adam was on. So definitely go check that one out if you're at all interested in, again, some of the best models in 3D printing. Also, you can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, all Print Your Games. And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery. Don't forget to use a screen protector.
And goodbye, everybody.